You don't know me, I'm Stephen Flannery, our FCBR president this year.
Woo!
I told them all I only signed up for a year, so in June, at the end of June, I'm resigning. No. So I'd like to thank everybody for coming. This is a much larger turnout than the last time we had a meeting here at the board office. Any stone tops over there? So that's a good reminder. Let's start off by muting our phones. And
I like to be an example, Stephen.
there you go. Sarah's always there for us. So again, thank you for coming. It's really excited to see everybody. It's good to finally get out and start doing more stuff. Keeping that in mind, I hope as we go forward through the remainder of the year, we'll see more of your faces at our events. We have a RPAC winery and poker run coming up here in June, right? June
17th.
Okay.
There's flyers in front of you. If you have any questions, let me know after.
And we'll have our golf tournament in September, as well as.
Hi, Terry.
Hi.
Come on in.
A lot of people here.
Yes, there is. We'll have an RPAC fishing tournament coming up, as well as these Breakfast of Champions once a month. And just follow our Facebook page. For those of you that are members, follow the Facebook page and you'll see our posts. As well, don't forget to check the emails that Amanda does send out. I know at times there's a couple of them that come at once, but there's a lot of good information in there, whether it's for our events or continuing ed or webinars that help your business become more professional and knowledgeable on things. Speaking of that, if you haven't heard, Maris is going to be updating their data system to, and I'm going to get it wrong, was it CDP or something like that? I forget the acronym they started with. It starts with, I watched the video yesterday, it starts with C, we'll figure it out. But it's going to ship their data over from.
A common core platform,
There.
CCP, I think.
That'll work.
I think.
Sure.
They'll tell us. So we'll be able to, they're going to be shifting the data over to the new system. It's supposed to be a lot better and wow us and easier to use. But look for those updates as well. So that all being said, I'd like us to welcome Kevin Sullivan. Did I get that one right too? Sweet. I'm going home. I'm too busy. So he's gonna talk to us about some cool stuff. So again, thanks for coming out. Go ahead. You take it away.
I thought we were just doing it together.
Oh, I didn't get that memo.
That's totally fine. I can go if you want. I'm sure I have something
No.
to do to somebody.
Tell us who you are.
I'm Angela Beckett.
I thought you were going to introduce it.
Yeah.
Oh,
I own AV Valuation Services, and I apologize. If you talk to me, I will recognize who you are. I don't recognize a lot of faces because it's usually I'm stuck behind a computer screen, unshowered for 3 days in my pajamas watching Golden Girls. So I apologize. If you talk to me, I'll recognize who you are. But we are in an interesting time of the real estate market. But I got in probably 16 years ago. Should have got out then, but I didn't know any better. I started working for the assessor's office, so I'm real sorry about your real estate taxes, but please pay those. My husband needs it. He's a government employee, but I realized real quick that people don't like you when you work for the government. They really don't, especially when it involves real estate taxes. So I started my own business about 10 years ago, and I haven't slept since, so it's been a good time. Super excited. But I roped Kevin into doing this with me because he's one of my favorite inspectors, and we are all of our jobs here, we kind of all go hand in hand. So I thought it would be great to have Mr. Sullivan here with me today to suffer through.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Check's in the mail. I'm really sorry. But yeah, it's been I'm sure it's been interesting on everybody's sides, but crazy's the new normal, so let's do this. Does anybody have any questions for either one of us regarding appraisals, the time we live in? I have no answers for those. It's a great time.
I did get
It's a
4
great time.
questions ahead of time.
Oh, okay, great.
Biggest question is about appraisals. What do you do when there is, let's say, a unique barn with lots of value, but you know there isn't a comp around? How do you come up with an appraisal? Another is the change in lumber prices. How are you catching up with them?
Well, so 2 answers for you. The first one, I get a lot of conflicting answers when it comes to extra amenities, because a lot of people, let's face it, we're in a rural area, we're not in the inner city where everybody's the same and they all have 7,500 square foot lots. But out here in rural America, you may have a property that has 18 barns and they put a $100,000 chandelier in their horse barn, which is nicer than I live in, I just want to say. But you may have, for instance, my dad's farm who has duct tape holding it all together. So what I like to do is look at each property individually. You're not going to have identical comps. It's just not going to happen. But with our additional amenities, I like to take what the total cost would be to create that structure, cut it maybe in a half or 2/3 and number fluff that. That is a technical term. Find it in the dictionary, it's in there, but you number fluff it in the report, because you've got to give them some credit for having that additional amenity, but it's not dollar for dollar. And that's always a hard sale for a lot of our property owners. It's not dollar for dollar. You do get extra credit for that, but it's not dollar for dollar. But I like to put about a half to 2/3 of what that total cost would be nailed from nail, so that it does add value. It's not always the same. And I always get the question, well, our last appraiser just gave it $10,000. And I don't know who that last appraiser was. I wish they would retire because they make my job really hard. But it's not always $10,000, because not every additional amenity is the same. What was the second question again? I had an answer for that too.
The change in lumber prices. How are you
Change in lumber
catching up with
prices.
that?
So for us, it's going to affect you realtors first, because you guys are working in the now and we have to work off the past. So when we do appraisals, it's everything a year prior, and the things that are happening right now has not caught up to us yet. So we try to put effort into the cost approach. With most of our lenders can't give too much credit to when things are over a year old. So it's going to be real tricky here until we get past the selling season to let our appraised values catch up to what the extra inflated costs are on the cost approach. We're real caught in a catch-22 right now with cost approaches. So until we get a season underneath us, we're trying to do the best we can.
All right, next question. How can we as agents help an appraiser?
Please overindulge every bit of information you can, because you're our only window on some of these, especially our rural properties. Like St. Andrews in town, we can figure that out. But on our rural properties, overdo it. Give us all the information you can, especially in our non-disclosure counties like Franklin and Crawford, Marys, all of those rural properties. Just overdo it. Overdo it with pictures, overdo it with the information, get your county assessor records, overdo it. Because you're our only window. If they have a gate, a lot of people don't want to tell us information. You may be the only person that got access to that property.
Okay. My next one is, what do you look for with FHA and USDA? This person is trying to better understand specifically what qualifies for government loans.
Take rhyme and reason and do the best you can. Take common sense out of it, just rock it out. No.
Okay, I got a house to look
Yeah.
at today.
USDA, FHA, and VA, they have gotten pretty basic with the requirements they have. They want to make sure for us, I know you guys are a little bit different. For us, for the appraiser, they just want to make sure that it's safe, secure, and sound. So no apparent issues. And then we also have to follow the guidelines. Like, for instance, I had a question the other day about Federal Pacific electrical panels are always a tricky one. In some municipalities, they're not allowed. Some municipalities allow them, but they have to have the trip breakers, and there's some that don't even know that they existed. So it really falls to safe, secure, and sound above all, and then you have to revert to whatever your local authorities require. Does that make sense? Yes, ma'am.
So I have a question with, going to the chip and seal, the appraiser, how do you get down to those that whenever you have the appraisal done, it's actually coming to our attention that they just say, fix the chip and seal? Is there someone we can call to get it more direct on what you're asking for? Because recently, there's been 3 incidents where they basically said, fix the chip and seal. Well, it's our job.
You're talking about the road? or
Chip,
what?
I'm sorry, chip, of lead-based
Chipping
paint,
paint.
sorry.
Oh.
So
Chip paint.
sorry.
I was like, dang.
We're all driving down that
You
road,
really got a
Sarah.
stickler.
I'm sorry.
God, I
Oh,
thought I was
I
on
gravel
gravel
roads, what are you talking about?
So
Our
sorry.
appraiser was
So,
a real jerk.
sorry, lead-based paint.
It's early for it.
It
Me too.
Actually, I was just gonna note that the chip and seal look good outside, but anyway, I was gonna note someone else. So anyway, that's on my brain. But anyway, the chip for lead-based paint, they actually just keep saying, fix it. So agents need to know what to fix. Like, it can be everywhere. The appraiser comes back out and says, well, you didn't fix this. So, and this is actually a question for another agent. So she's wanting to know, is there someone we can actually call to say, you know, we know you want this done, but how do we get down to the appraiser coming back out going, well, you missed over here. And they literally thought they fixed it because they were over in the section where they thought it needed to be done.
Sure.
So how do you fix, you know, not the third time coming out for the appraiser to reevaluate what was done for?
They should have it narrowed down in the appraisal report. And if they don't, when you get that copy, make them do it. Before you make,
appraiser?
yeah, before you make the repairs, because you guys typically get a copy of it when there's revisions that need to be made.
So we can actually call that. appraiser?
Contact that appraiser and have them narrow it down, because sometimes we get busy and we're like, hey, scrape and paint, blah, blah, blah. And I've had people contact
Oh,
me
yeah.
and say exactly where do you need this done, because if you look at, you know, a 30 by 40 wood deck and you say scrape and paint the wood deck, I've had people call me and I was like, oh God, I'm sorry, just do this deck and railing and where it's apparent here. So just contact the appraiser before you get to it.
It's actually happened just recently, 3 times, and so she's like, okay, I'm ready to call someone to get this to stop.
Sure.
Because they're going back out and have to pay for it again.
Anywhere it's chipping. I know what appraiser you're talking about, but it's anywhere it is chipping.
If you see a peel, scrape the
You gotta
crap out of it,
scrape
and
it
slap
off,
some
put
paint
some
on
paint
there.
on it. It doesn't even matter if it matches.
But you know, but the thing is,
It doesn't know.
they should take a picture of it, so.
We should be
people-
specific. If you have questions, just go straight to that appraiser before you start.
You know, because it's like they go back out and look at it again and go, oh, well, you know, so they're like, please just tell us where.
Sure.
It's a good idea anyway with, and you know, if it's an appraiser or an inspector, for whoever's doing the job to call the inspector or the appraiser, just to find out, get clarification, so they're not doing something that, you know, they're doing work, if they're doing the wrong thing.
Yeah, because that's been a big ordeal, I bet, for them, so
Just go straight to the appraiser before you get,
frustrated.
mhm,
And they're paying for another
right.
time coming out.
And we don't, and honestly, I try to, and I don't want this to sound unprofessional, I try to get out of it as much as possible because everybody's busy and we don't have time for all the piddly stuff. So we should try to over communicate those issues. If it's piddly stuff, I try to call you directly and say, hey, do you think they could take care of this? But if there's a laundry list of things, we should over-inform so that there is a one pass coming back and forth. Because I don't want to come back. I don't have time. And I know you guys are trying to get the deal done too. So the better we work together. But if there's ever a question, go straight to the appraiser before you do it, to just save time and money.
And have them maybe take a picture, send it to you.
There should be a picture of what they needed in the report plus a list.
But so they take a picture and then they thought they did their job and that's what started.
Well, the problem with that too is if there's 25 spots of that chipping paint, there's not gonna be 25 pictures in there.
Right,
They're gonna
right.
say,
And
it's an example of what.
But we should have a list. We should say fix it on the soffit, deck, railing, stairs,
Yeah,
bathroom,
yeah.
pink toilet, whatever you got. I don't care.
Basement window.
Right.
And yet you can't have any chipping paint, you have to vacuum them up.
There is an appraiser that says that
Oh,
if they
yeah.
see
Oh,
any
my.
chipping paint, they'll,
Oh, yeah, Dave's.
Oh, yeah.
They will
It's
fail it.
fun to vacuum them.
And if you actually do it outside and you're getting it off of the outside, you better not have any of it on the ground. Right.
That's what I'm saying, you have to vacuum it up or have something.
Holy
but for fun, you
moly.
could always
Yes.
plant a flower bed. Why
Bet those flowers are gonna be beautiful.
True.
Sure thing.
So when you were saying earlier about give you as much information as possible to help, I mean, are you talking like through the MLS or when the appraisal, when we know appraisers going out there and say, hey, here's additional information, here's updates, here's this, here's
Through your
that.
listing through the MLS,
Through the
because I may
MLS.
not be appraising your property, but I may be using it for a comp.
Okay,
So
okay,
the better-
so in the
more-
MLS for
Mhm.
this much information.
Yeah, because, and it may be 30 of us that are using that one comp, especially like we're out in Marys County or something, we may only have 3 comps, so we may use
Uh-huh.
that 15 times. So it'd be better if we weren't 15 times wrong.
Yeah, it would be nice if Maris would let you have more words,
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
because sometimes you can't describe a house.
Mhm.
Sometimes you only have 2 sentences, but lots of times you have a lot more
but,
Sure.
to describe.
sure.
You know, that's the only thing. And then it says additional comments in Maris, but where does it show up? I've never seen it show up anywhere.
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It
Yeah,
says
I'm like, where does this,
additional marketing comments.
yeah, additional comments, and I'm like, okay, where does that go? Because I've played with that before too, and I'm like,
Maybe
I don't know
only the
where it's.
appraisers get it.
Well, maybe, yeah, 'cause
I
Maybe.
think it
that-
depends on how you print the format, like how we have agent, summary, detailed. I think it comes out in the detailed if you print the detailed agent.
I'll have to look
Format.
at it.
I don't know.
I'll ask my son.
Yeah.
I think the kids do it.
Yeah, I'll put him.
The kids do it. Yes, sir.
I have a condo, a 2-bedroom condo and a 4 unit. It's all in one building. And the homeowner association never got off the ground, or it was dissolved
Okay.
20 years ago. There's no documentation for it. So the appraiser that's on it is struggling. It's deeded as a condo, but has no homeowner association. So it's functioning as a single-family residential attached. But there's no comps with other condos with no HOA. And there's no documentation to prove that it is a single-family residential.
Can I ask where it's located?
Southlands.
Yes.
Where at?
Southlands.
Get one that's-
Oh,
Why don't
So-
you use the ones
Yeah.
in, what's the place here? Huh?
Character
No, off of, Independence here.
Grand
Union.
Central.
Water tower.
No,
Grand Central?
Grand
yes,
Central.
because they dissolved theirs,
They have
yeah.
attached housing.
So
You know,
They have
but they
attached.
did, I did that subdivision.
But there's
It's totally
documentation,
different.
there's
so-
documentation for the ones that.
There's no assessment. Everyone, it stands alone. You can do a survey and that is what your common ground is on
Yes.
the one on Grand.
But the appraiser's struggling
So-
trying to,
So
can I
they're trying to
ask,
use
my second
Washington.
question is, who's your lender?
St. Louis lender.
Okay.
I work with what the buyer brings.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, with anything, with your struggle with comps, you have to use what you have.
Right.
So if you don't have any attached housing, you don't have any condos, you're probably, if it's in, is it in, oh, it's in this, you're probably gonna have other condos, but there's no adjustment we can make for the fact of having an HOA to not having an HOA. So to CYA everything, you use what you have and you just comment on everything. You can only use what you have.
Right.
And if you don't have it,
It's a boy.
find a smaller house. Yeah, small, you could either do houses
Work.
or you could do condos that have the association. You couldn't make an adjustment for either one because you don't have proof that there's difference in value. We have to have market proof, but we have to use what we have. So if we don't have that identical unit, we've got to go to other areas to try to put it together. It has value.
Right. And I think there was nothing within the last 6 months for either one, a
Yeah, it's
2-bed
meant to say
attached
the boy thing.
or a 2-bed condo.
Condo.
Nothing in 6 months.
Aren't there
And-
2 others under contract there right now?
Yes, with HOA.
Oh, those have.
They have HOA and they are struggling to
Sure.
use that. And they're not sold yet. They're just.
Well, and then, so Du Bois would be a comparable that doesn't have an association.
And that actually did go
And
under
it just went
contract.
under contract. I don't know if it's closed yet.
How soon do you have to close this? It's not uncommon that I've had to wait to do the appraisal until one has closed and then do the appraisal. So I at least have one. and then rock it out with the other stuff.
Mhm.
Supposed to close next week.
Crap. You're killing me.
But we are going to extend.
Okay. Because you could, depending on the lender, depending on the underwriters, on what they're gonna allow, you could have a lender ask the underwriter what they'll allow if this is what you have to work with, and give them the option. We could wait a little while until this one closes, so we at least have one, or we have to use what we have and we adjust and we comment accordingly because we don't have anything else. It's not uncommon, it happens.
I'll look at that one under void.
The other issue is that, the underwriter won't approve it because it's not in an association that's approved. So if it's an FHA loan. And some lenders will go by whatever guidelines, if it's a local bank, sometimes they don't have a guideline that like, okay, I'll approve it. But some lenders have to use all the same guidelines. An underwriter, it doesn't matter if it's FHA, VA, whatever, that's what they want. So you've got to check that too.
We need shirts made that say, always go local. It helps us out tremendously.
But that's kind of a question for the lenders, because I'm getting one in Southlands too, in the same situation. When I check financing options, will FHA or VA, I mean, those aren't, is it just cash or conventional would be our options? And because of the fact that there's.
I talked to a local lender and they're saying it's going to be an ARM.
Yeah,
Not
oh,
even
really?
conventional.
That's what I've had to do in there, or cash.
Right.
Yeah, the listing agent called me the other day, so.
Cam did?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Oh, because you had that listing. Thanks, Jamie.
You're welcome.
So I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
The, you mentioned the appraisals are looking at properties that sold 6 months, years now to a year ago. So a lot of the homes within the last 6 months that have sold above listing price, they're not even hitting your reports yet?
In the past 6 months, yes. There hasn't been a whole lot of them to help that time adjustment yet.
Okay,
But I would say if we can get past, if we can make it to August, we will be able to make a time adjustment from these first 6 months to the last 6 months. We should be able to see that there is a definite a time adjustment is the only thing that we could adjust for, unless they've done improvements or something for that increase. But if we can just hang on just a little while longer, I think we're gonna be okay. It's just these first few, this first selling part of this selling season, we're just caught in a catch-22 here for a hot minute.
so
And
then,
sometimes it's just astronomical, like they're offering 50,000 just because they can, and then they lose it because it didn't appraise, and I'm like, well, that's where that common sense, I worry about that a lot.
yeah. So with that being said, will the appraisals will hold the value in 6 months from now? If somebody goes in and offers $30,000 over list price, that it's gonna appraise.
There
out
will
most
be enough
likely?
market proof that we
Yeah.
can justify that,
Okay.
hopefully. But, and it's weighted in that direction anyway on most of the sales that we have coming through right now. So there should be enough proof to get that through, to go through for our lenders and our underwriters, that we can prove that in the past 6 months, there's been a 10 or 15 or sometimes 50% increase on some of these properties, where we can make those adjustments to upward swing and justify why those first 6 months we don't have it, and these few sales that we do have in this first 6 months do. So in time, we should be able to be okay.
And how long will it last? How long will people continue to buy over list price? Do we know? Does anybody know that?
Through all the, we get all these emails and marketing pamphlets in the mail, and they say about September, October, they fear that the bubble will start popping. So I think once we get through this season, I think it will head south. I don't know if it'll be as bad as it was back in 11, but I fear that there's gonna be some fallout.
Well, I would say the biggest thing I've noticed is we actually have a lot of our things going under contract are from not our local people. I mean, we have a lot of things being outbid by St. Louis, Illinois, Texas, Arizona, out of the country. We are getting outbid. Our local people are not getting properties, and definitely Washington. I mean, are you experiencing, we've experienced it tons more this year than ever before.
I've noticed a lot more of our VA clients are all from out of state.
Are you seeing too a lot more cash buyers?
We're having a lot, no, just, I've got a lot of VA,
Okay.
we have, all cash, we have just a lot of people. I mean, because you think of, we're having bidding wars, 7, 8 people bidding on our properties, and we're getting outbid by our local families that are not getting these properties. So it's a lot of cash, but I've got a lot of VA, I've got FHA, because their numbers, and they're making those numbers work. So, I don't know, I'm thinking, how can we I don't see a crash coming too soon because we're getting a lot of other people in here.
I've seen an increase in calls from folks from California because they can invest here, help a lot cheaper. And Hoffman's helping a lot of that too. So that trend is not going to change. In my opinion, it's not going to change for some time. And yeah, it sucks that local families may get beat out, but it's a brave new world. And this is how the market works.
It's my understanding the same thing kind of happened in Herman like 2 years ago when people from all over started to buy up the homes for bed and breakfast and the locals couldn't afford them.
And there's a lot of regentrification going on within Kirkwood, Webster, and places like that folks have been moving out here for the last couple of years. I mean, but the Washington market and Hoffman is really driving that quite a bit. And again, folks, from what I've heard from folks in California, the percentage of return out there for them to buy anything real estate, I mean, what we sell for 130 grand, they're getting $1.3 million. So they can get a much better return here, and they're not even moving here. They're just buying property. So it is interesting and exciting, but it's also frustrating.
So how's everybody else feeling?
Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how's your
Yeah, it's nuts. It's just a nuts world right now. I've noticed the clientele has gotten less patient, more rude.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh my God. I'm like, who are your parents?
I
I'm
know.
gonna beat them and you.
It's not our fault, there's no inventory.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
I've been yelled at in more last 2 months and I've been in like 20 years. People are always angry about something. I'm like, God. Yeah, it's horrible.
I've got a question. Appraisals, like let's say you've got a single family ranch home about 1,700 square foot. So if it's 2 bedrooms, when you go to do comps, do you have to have comps that are 2 bedrooms or can you actually use 3 bedrooms when you look at the square footage?
Both. We would love to have other comps that have 2 bedrooms. If we do, great. I would be careful in my comp selection. I would like to have at least one that has 2 bedrooms. You can use 3 bedrooms because a lot of times they have basement finish and have other areas, so you try to justify it that way. But if you only have 2 bedrooms and you're only using comps that have 4 bedrooms, you're gonna get questioned on that. So you gotta be careful with it, but it shouldn't affect it. You can use 3 bedrooms.
You can, okay. And then we have a client where he had an appraisal done on his own 6 months ago.
Oh, God.
Then he wants to list it, but he's like, oh, the market's even better now, so I need to go 10,000 over what it appraised 6 months ago.
Sure. Walk over, turn off the news, and then talk to him sensibly.
Turn off HDTV.
Yes.
Yeah. And like, when are they actually recorded? Like, if you have an appraisal done and then it doesn't appraise out and the buyer insists, oh, I gotta get a different appraisal. I mean, is there another, once you've already had an appraisal done and you get a second one, can that appraiser see what the first appraiser did? Even if it's like a VA, there's nothing recorded
There's
out there.
nothing public about an appraisal.
But I thought they said that there was something, one of them that.
FHA appraisal, it's not for 6 months.
That's what I was thinking.
Through whoever has it,
Okay.
through their client,
Through
not
the
through,
bank?
yeah,
Yeah.
through
the
their
bank.
client, not for us.
So if they went to a different lender.
Mhm. Yeah, so they could line up 6 appraisers all at the same time and pick whichever one they wanted. Nobody would know unless they told us. For each appraisal that we do, the only people that know about it are me and the client and their client. per se. So 3 people in a normal circle. But once they get that appraisal, what they do with it past that point is their business, but it's not recorded, it's not public information, and sale prices is not public information in non-disclosure counties. So St. Louis City, St. Charles County, and St. Louis County are the other ones that get recorded sale prices.
Are there different type of appraisals? Meaning, if I'm having something appraised for estate purposes, or versus refi, versus new purchase? Or is it just whatever the appraiser wants to fudge on?
You know, I really love when people call me and they say, hey, I need a buyer's appraisal. And I'm like, shoot, just shoot. It's all the same, whatever, and I mean this wholeheartedly, whatever appraisal I'm doing for you, that appraisal value is the same. Whether I'm doing it for your dad's attorney or your buyers or the bank, that appraisal should always be the same. There's no high, there's no low, there's only fair market value. So
Should be.
shoot
Should
the
be.
person that started there.
So even though it should be, what actually happens in practice?
Yeah, tar and feather, we should bring it back. We should bring it back. No, there should only be fair market value no matter what you're doing it for. And I hate the appraisal that always comes in, unless it is the fair market value, it comes in $1,000 higher than the purchase price. Drives me nuts. If they're paying $200 and it's worth $400, it should appraise for $400, not $205. But unless it's worth $205. But yeah, that part drives me crazy.
I think, at least some of the appraisers, I think some of them are gun shy from the last downturn, and Dodd-Frank getting hand-slapped over crazy things, so.
We shouldn't be gun shy if we have the proof. We shouldn't be gun shy if we have the proof. Our CYA always is the proof in the appraisal, not what happened 10 years ago. Rock it out. We got people that are yelling at us constantly, praise it, do it.
Yeah, it should be worth what it's worth.
Right. But if they want to pay $25,000 over, get mom's checkbook out, whose ever checkbook you gotta get.
Off that statement, I feel like I agree with that statement, especially, or you feel like there's different scenarios basically on a purchase. I've noticed it a lot on especially like foreclosure, purchasing a foreclosure, refinancing, and the bank's like, say you bought it for 50 and you want to refi for 60, you want to pull out 60,000. They're gonna look, I feel like when they get it, all of a sudden it appraises for 70, 75, so you can pull your 60 out, you're not having to, put any money down, and realistically, that house is worth 100,000. But they're looking at, you need this. They're giving you enough to make sure on your debt to income part that, you can pull that money out. I just feel like there's a fine line on the refis based versus the purchases that they do come in quite a bit lower typically.
There may be a catch-22 there for both sides, for us and for the lender, with foreclosures especially. Sometimes the lenders, they're on a short leash on what they can do with the foreclosure market anyway, because I do a lot of liquidation appraisals, so I'll appraise it at fair market value, but they want a liquidation value as well. And sometimes they have to go by that liquidation value. But again, no matter whether it's the purchase or the refi, we should be appraising fair market value. So if you feel, and you can go to I'm trying to cause more work for you guys, really sorry. But if you can question it, you can always question the appraisal. If you don't agree with it, go to your lender and talk to them about it. And in turn, they'll come to us and say, hey, could you look at this? The best thing you can do is if you don't agree with it, come in with proof though. Because if you just say, I don't agree with this crap, probably not gonna look at it. But if you have other sales that say, hey, give this to them and have them look at this, we'll by all means look at it. Because sometimes and there may be, and especially I know for you guys too, in some of our smaller municipalities, there may be a ton of private sales that we wouldn't know anything about. That if you could give us that information ahead of time or after, we'll use it.
You will? Because I had
Absolutely.
an appraiser, that said that they could not use. I gave them the settlement statement. This was
BS,
a large sale, and they said, nope, we can't use it.
BS.
So
We're
I
usually
should've-
begging,
I should have been mean, huh?
tar and feather, bring it back, Janie. Yeah, but no, if it's a fair market sale and it just closed privately,
Yeah,
I would love to
there
have it.
was.
I would
Okay.
love to have it, because we're usually begging for comps anyway.
Well, that's what I thought. I'm like, Yeah, I
Especially-
just closed on it last week.
I've noticed in our land appraisals especially, love those private sales.
Okay. So
And
next
what, do
time I
you
should
need to
really
have a settlement
question.
statement if you're?
That'd be perfect.
Okay,
Yeah, and that's what I gave them with the tax record and.
Because that's all, not that the other documents are not legit, but that comes straight from the title company,
Yeah, I was
so.
like, well, I didn't make up the settlement statement,
Right.
you know?
Because I have had conversations with contractors in the area. They're like, well, that sold for blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, just show me the settlement statement. Well, it was discounted because of that. And I'm like, well, then I can't help you. I can't help you. But yeah, if you have it, provide it.
I have a question. So back to USDA and FHA. Are you guys looking at the same thing as an inspector, as an appraiser? When you go to the same house and I get one thing from an inspector and the other thing from an appraiser, is there some kind of a list that we could have to see what is required on?
The appraiser's in charge of the case on the FHA, USDA. They have a checklist that they go through.
Okay,
And so the inspection that they get is not, really has nothing to do with the FHA part.
okay, so you're just doing an inspection no matter what kind of a loan it is, and remember you used to have the
Yeah, they used to be
list?
different. USDA had their own guidelines, they had their own forms that you filled out.
Yeah.
FHA was the same way. Now they've changed all that.
So you just do just an inspection regular?
that. And most of the time, that's not brought up. It's not, they don't
I
ask.
only had it like once in the last year.
Well,
I was like, what?
what happens is,
See, that's where I'm
It goes in
confused. I'm like,
cycles.
What, who wants what? Yeah.
it goes in cycles, and it'll, all of a sudden, somebody will get a burr under their saddle about that, and it'll be a requirement for about 6 months or a year. And then it'll go away again for 5
We
or
just
10
had that with a VA, where we didn't realize we had to have it tested more.
Yeah.
And
A lot of times you'll get, okay, well, we need this, okay, then they go get that, and then, okay, now we need a well and septic inspection. Okay, now we need these extra water tests, and it just keeps on.
Yeah, I just had.
Go.
Well, and I think it, like you
Like,
said,
what
it
is
depends on
that?
which way the wind blows, because sometimes I'll say, hey, or they're like, hey, we're really trying to get this done really quick, we need your appraisal, we got the termite inspection done, we really need this to go quick, and I'm like, well, contact your lender, because there may be extra tests that you have to do, that you don't wanna wait until you find out to closing, but sometimes they require it, sometimes they don't. I don't know if it depends on lender, or if the underwriters are catching it. or-
Underwriter.
I guess it's the
Yeah.
underwriter, yeah.
I guess if it's not noted on the appraisal, it doesn't come up.
But I know about 10 years ago, they had that with the skirting around mobile homes. It was a big ordeal for about 6 months or a year, and then that just went away.
Do you see why we're
Like,
confused?
On to new things, what's on
It's
CNN?
like, I don't know what rules, yeah.
And then, I guess it's in the neighborhood area or something.
Right.
Kevin, can you think of any things that are new or hot topics in inspections right now?
Well, we're seeing a lot of pre-listing inspections being done just because there are so many backup contracts.
Uh-huh.
And the sellers want to know if there's anything that's going to come up and bite them at the very end.
Mhm.
You know, there's a lot of inspectors out there, and not any two are going to do everything the same way, but all the inspectors are going to catch the big things. And that's what the sellers don't want to have. They don't want to have something come up and bite them, and then one of their buyers says, oh, well, you know, you need to fix this septic, it's going to cost 20 grand. You know? So we're seeing a lot more pre-listing inspections. But other than that, I mean, we're doing the same property probably multiple times more than we have because of those backup contracts. Because the seller says, well, they get an inspection notice and they said, well, go on, we'll take the backup contract, which is kind of dangerous, but that's being done, then we'll inspect the house again. Probably the appraiser the same way.
Yeah, sometimes, it's sometimes, and correct me if I'm wrong, but sometimes it comes from the realtor. They'll, in the preliminary of listing it, you'll ask for an appraisal or ask for an inspection if you have a tricky one. That
Yeah.
way,
It's true.
yeah. And I recommend an inspection a lot, just so there's no surprises, and then you're caught with your pants down halfway through the contract, and then something crazy comes up. I always tell people to get an inspection done.
Yeah, the other thing I'm seeing is people will put a contract on a house because they know they gotta get it tied up. Because they have, they've got competition, but then they find something else that they like better. And so they want to get an inspection just to get out of the contract. So, we're seeing that a lot more, which I don't know that they actually have to get an inspection.
Yeah.
Say the contract.
It depends on, you have to talk to the other agent or whatever. You can say, well, I'm gonna either do an inspection and walk away, or you want us just to walk away now and not
Sometimes they
waste
can get
time.
mad and just say, yeah, you can just go do your inspection.
Some people do.
Some of them do.
Sometimes it's good, because then you have the inspection for the seller, and
If it does fall through, then
yeah,
you're in
you
the
can
know.
be prepared, for the next one.
And we are seeing a lot of out-of-state buyers too, that we never even need.
Are you sticking mostly in Franklin County, or are you doing St. Louis County?
We do most, about 85% is Franklin County, and, like Crawford County and Gasconade.
Not saying St. Charles. That's a crazy place, man.
We don't go there that often. Yeah, we do. Usually it's a realtor that we do business with.
Yeah.
It's not somebody that, like you have property in St. Charles that you sold, we'll go there.
Thanks.
Just you don't know.
So that's gonna happen next week. It's like-
Dang it, Julie.
One thing I've had to tell buyers and sellers is that this isn't just local, this is nationwide. I talked to people buying and selling in Tennessee, Ohio, Colorado, California, Carolina, and everybody's frustrated with both selling, having to review multiple offers, buyers getting beat out. You just have to remind them of that. You're not gonna get away from it. It's probably here for a little while longer.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I was in St. Charles last week. I'll share this little story. And the neighbor, I'm getting ready to list this house, and the neighbor had put a coming soon sign in their yard. And so they're like, and they coming soon, it never comes. They just, it's crazy up there. So they put a coming soon sign in, and the lady is in their kitchen washing the dishes. And there's somebody in her backyard, and her husband almost shot him. He went around in the back, and they were like, "Oh, we were just looking at your house at 10:30 at night."
Oh,
Yes, no, they call the police and everything. I'm like, well, let's just wait a week before we list your house. For advertisement. We don't. Yes, they were walking around the back of their house, and she said her husband went out the garage door, like the man door on the side, and went up with a gun. And I'm like, oh my God, this is out of control.
Yeah.
Because it was coming soon and they had to see it.
So was this your listing, Joni?
Yeah, do
Was
I?
it your coming soon? or
No,
somebody
no,
else's?
no, it wasn't mine. It was actually 2 houses down from where I'm gonna list. Yeah, she shared that story with us. I'm just like, holy shit, man, this is out of control. They were gonna miss it because she said that the guy said that they had written 8 offers and they lost every one, but they weren't gonna miss this one. I'm like, dude.
You might have missed it.
Yeah, you're almost dead, yeah.
So I have a
Looking in the
client-
kitchen window while you're doing the dishes, man, I don't know. I would probably shot right through the window. I don't know. Sorry.
I have a client that's looking for a property in Liberty, Missouri, and they came back last week and told me, I don't know if your buyers, a lot of them are writing a letter to the seller. And then I guess up in Kansas City, they were even doing videos and giving them to the sellers. And they said that they put an end to that because the realtors are getting in trouble for.
Yeah, they had, there's a lot of them in St. Charles, on the agent comments, they had no love letters.
Yeah.
No love letters.
Yeah.
It's gotten to
Yeah,
a point
yeah.
where it's not really
Yeah.
something that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's up to the seller if they want to take, you would say.
And it was like causing discrimination issues.
Right. Yeah, it's always a country song about their dog died, their mom was, all that stuff, and can you please hold the house? I'm like, oh, are you the creep around in the backyard? I don't know. That's nutty.
And it worked for a while. In this market,
It's one of your
it's money.
clients.
It's money that's talking,
Then
not
I'm
love
at
letters.
Katie's
Oh.
street where I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
That's a global issue too. I've seen a lot of that from NAR coming
Yeah.
out.
What's
The love letters.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's happening everywhere.
Possible steering.
Yeah.
So we'll meet again in another 3 months and have some self-help groups. Check out alcohol at these.
We would normally have alcohol.
It's in my purse, you want to? Oh, sorry.
I do have one last question on my list. Does the amount of bedrooms affect the appraised price, or is it just the overall square footage?
Yes and no. If you're doing a condo, bedrooms obviously affected. If going back to her, if we're having a 2-bedroom versus a 3-bedroom, probably not. But if you have a 2 versus a 5, yes. Overall bedroom count is close, but especially in condos, you're really gonna get vicinity over bedroom count.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Does taxes have any bearing on your appraisal? Real estate taxes?
No, ma'am. We put it in the report, they require it.
Right.
the latest year, but
I mean, if you're appraising something that maybe has a $2,000 property tax on it and something has 1,500, that wouldn't matter whatsoever. Okay,
they just got
good to
lucky
know.
and don't poke the bear.
Yeah.
When it comes to taxes, don't poke the bear. I always tell people, you know, if you're getting your house refinanced or you have a recent appraisal, look at it, because I'm sure everybody here has gotten their latest tax assessment because they've increased the overall taxes for the area. So I always say, use that appraisal to your advantage. If you couldn't sell it for what they have you assessed at, use that appraisal. Go in there and sign it to them. But your tax amount, I've never seen a tax amount affected.
Well, see, if I'm doing comps, sometimes I'll look at the real estate tax just to see, but it really isn't comparable at all.
No. And that, I'm glad that you brought that up. In St. Louis, St. Charles, and St. Louis City, the taxes and the information is pretty close, but when you get out here, it gets real loose in the information, especially, and I want to say this to all my realtor friends, when you get into 1.5 stories and 2 stories, it is not going to hurt you to measure that house because the county is probably wrong. They guess by the pitch of the roof from the outside. We're not allowed, I don't work there anymore, I'm sorry. They're not allowed on the inside of that structure to measure how much square footage that second floor is.
Right.
So it's a guess. So for instance, the house that we just bought, I say we just bought, I'm still unpacking boxes, I've had so much time on my hands. The house we just bought, I think they have it at like 5,000 square feet, and it's really only 4,200 because that second floor, it's only pitched in the middle is where that square footage is. So always check that square footage on your county records compared to what you're actually listing at, especially with 1.5 stories and 2 stories.
How does that work with like an atrium where there is no second
Oh,
story?
atriums. God, we almost made it through a meeting without
I
that.
didn't build them, you guys are crazy. Square footage isn't there, and I got nothing.
Yeah.
There.
Paying for air.
The county has always just done it as the first floor. And technically in that atrium ranch, there is typically an extravagant staircase and little extra patio things. So I go ahead and do it as the first floor because there's cost in that first floor. So I count it as square footage. It's not, unless it's typically over, you know, if it's the size of this and this is the atrium, I may not, but typically they're not usually that big. So I give them credit for that square footage because there's technically something there.
The stairway.
Right, the stairway, the little extra around the staircase and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there technically is things there that we need to account for. And then so the first floor is everything that's 6 inches above grade. So that lower level that's all out, it's not all out. So that's basement and then basement finish. It all comes out in the wash. People's like, oh, we have a 5-bedroom house. I'm like, no, you have a 3-bedroom with 2 basement bedrooms that are finished. It all comes out in the wash. We just have to do it a little bit differently.
And then I go for your 2-story houses that don't have anything, that have the big wide open look down onto the living rooms.
I cut those out. I do cut those out because there is nothing there. And that's a lot of times going back to what I was saying earlier, where that second area square footage where the assessor has, they may have it all as 2-story and you're being taxed on that. So I cut that out if it's completely, you know, if it's a 20 by 20 open area, I cut that out.
I've had clients challenge the assessor, it's like, look, we don't have a floor here,
Sure.
you know? And then you know what they said? Don't care.
Oh, yeah.
They want the tax money. They weren't willing to work. I've only been successful once with a client that they lowered it a little bit, but they said, we're not lowering it down to the market value.
What?
Yeah.
No,
It's been a few years, so I don't know, I mean, that might not be this current assessor, but it's happened.
oh, that stinks. They should have talked to somebody else. They can go above them. But they should have,
Yeah, we can't go above the commission.
oh, God. More feathers and more tar. There's not enough. I'm gonna need a truckload.
I'm gonna start using that.
Hold on there.
This is being recorded, be careful.
Yeah.
You do a deal with Jody.
That's what I'm gonna say. It's my new slang now. Mhm.
I have a question for Kevin. Are any loans requiring septic inspections anymore or not?
Not technically, but probably if you have an FHA or USDA or VA loan, you probably are gonna be getting a well and septic inspection. More than likely, or what we're seeing.
Well, I know VA makes you have a water inspection, but they don't make you have a septic usually.
It all has to do with the appraiser or the underwriter.
Right.
If you can get the stars to align, imagine what we could do.
I had a septic on a house one time, and the septic tank was within 20 feet of the house, right by the driveway. And the
Wow.
appraiser put down public water, it was a St. Louis appraiser, put down public water, and that went through FHA, with no well and septic, went through his public water, the underwriter didn't catch it.
Hate to be selling it down the line.
Yeah. Boy, I
I had a
hard
VA,
southern net realtor.
I had a VA appraiser not want to deal with it.
Fun.
I've learned since that you can overcome that, but
What do you mean not do what?
they were not going to make it acceptable. A lagoon was not an acceptable
Well, that cuts
septic
out half the
system.
properties and 90% of the properties in Gasconade County.
Right, right. Yeah, we were able to overcome that, but that
And mowing
that
down.
first
St.
review.
Louis appraiser.
Yeah.
St. Louis and St. Charles County. Yeah.
I love it when they come out.
Yeah.
It's exciting. I want to give them a hug.
Everybody in this section has lagoons. It works.
Yeah, and it just depends on where it falls back to your local authority. Some require fences and some don't. So as long as it has whatever they require, we don't have any say over that. I think some appraisers have an authority complex. Notice some of these things, like going back to the lead-based paint thing. You're not the authority, you're just saying whether it's there or not.
Okay, Kevin, one more question.
Okay.
Are they requiring or will they require the new smoke detectors that also have the carbon monoxide on them? I know they are in St. Louis.
Well, I mean, different municipalities might, you know, depending on what municipality.
Washington does.
Right.
City limits.
They require the carbon monoxide and the.
Municipality.
It is in St.
I mean, even
Louis.
if it's not gas or anything.
Well,
Yeah,
It's
Yeah.
all in your eye.
if you have a attached garage,
Yeah.
yeah. 'Cause, you know, we just had 4 people die from carbon monoxide poisoning in Union. and I
Did they
just
call it a
went,
COVID death? I'm just asking for a friend.
Oh, I love her.
Sorry. I had to get my gigs in where I can. I've been in the basement for a long time, just doing reports. I have an audience of a year and a half. Die up here. You know they did, you know they counted it as a COVID. But that's sad. I
Again,
think
this is being recorded and broadcast.
people know they get it. I'll send out my apology letters after it's over.
It's good to see everybody. Got an appointment, got one.
Good luck with that condo
Thank you.
and your lagoons.
Does anybody else have anything?
Anybody have any general board questions? Cool. All right.
there you go.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.